When my husband died, I thought grief would be the hardest thing I'd ever face. I was wrong. The real nightmare began when his boss called and said, "Mrs. Carter, come to my office. Don't tell your kids. If you do, you might end up dead too. Stay with me till the end of this story. Then tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this warning about family betrayal travels." My name is Evelyn. I am a 71-year-old grandmother from Houston, Texas, and this is how my own daughter tried to erase me for money. We had just buried my husband, Frank, at Willow Grove Memorial the day before. 46 years of marriage, and I felt like a guest at my own life. I sat in the front pew, but it didn't feel like my place. My daughter, Naomi, and her husband, Trent, ran everything. The flowers, the songs, the photos on the slideshow, even what the pastor was allowed to say. "Mom, don't worry about decisions," Naomi had told me that morning. "You're too emotional to think straight. Let us handle everything." Too emotional, too fragile, too old. Those words sounded like concern, but under them, I heard something colder: control. People lined up after the service, but they didn't come to me first. They crowded around Naomi and Trent as if they were the main mourners. "Your mom must be taking this so hard," I heard Naomi whisper to a woman from church. "We're handling everything so we don't burden her." Burden. That word stung more than any sympathy. Frank never treated me like a burden. We were a team, even when our knees started aching and our memories got fuzzy around the edges. Things changed after Naomi married Trent 5 years ago. He was smooth, smart, worked in financial services, whatever that meant. Slowly, the language changed. "Mom, you don't remember that, do you? Mom, why don't you let us take over the bills? Mom, it's not safe for you to live alone anymore." Little comments, little doubts, a slow drip of gaslighting. After the funeral, everyone came back to the house Frank and I had lived in for nearly 40 years, our little brick place in a quiet Houston neighborhood. It used to feel warm, safe. That day, it felt like it belonged to someone else. Naomi and Trent moved around like hosts of a party, directing the caterer, whispering in corners, taking cards and envelopes before they ever reached my hands. I sat on the edge of Frank's old recliner, holding a cup of coffee I never drank. "Mom, we've been talking," Naomi said, sitting across from me. Her tone was soft, but her jaw was tight. "You shouldn't stay here by yourself. This house is too big. The stairs are dangerous. The neighborhood isn't what it used to be." My stomach dropped. "This is my home," I said quietly. "Your father and I built our life here." Trent leaned forward, smiling like a salesman. "There are some beautiful senior communities in the Woodlands," he said. "Resorts, really. Pools, doctors on site, security. You'd have friends your age. We'd visit every weekend." "I'm not going to a home," I replied. My voice shook, but I meant it. "This is my house." Naomi sighed. The kind of sigh that says, "You're being unreasonable." "Mom, you left the stove on twice last month," she said, "and you forgot your doctor's appointment. We're worried. You're slipping." Before I could answer, my phone started ringing on the coffee table. Trent reached for it. "I'll get it for you, Mom." I grabbed it first. The screen said, "Dalton and Green CPAs. Frank's firm." "Hello," I answered, my heartbeat in my ears. "Mr. Carter," a man said, "this is Mark Dalton. I worked with Frank." His voice was tight, serious. "I'm very sorry for your loss," he said quickly, "but I need you to come to my office tomorrow at 10. It's urgent. It's about something Frank discovered before he passed." Naomi and Trent were staring at me, watching my face like they were trying to read the conversation through my skin. "What is it about?" I asked. "I can't discuss it over the phone," Mark said. "And listen to me carefully, Mrs. Carter. Don't tell Naomi or Trent you're coming. Don't mention this call. It could put you in danger." My hand froze around the phone. "In danger?" I whispered. "Yes, please, just come. Alone." He hung up. I lowered the phone slowly. Naomi leaned closer. "Who was that?" she asked. "A friend from church," I lied. "Just checking on me." Her eyes narrowed for a second. Then she smiled again, that fake, sweet smile I had started to fear. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I rode the elevator up to the 15th floor of a glass building downtown. Mark Dalton met me at the door of his office, closed it behind us, and locked it. "Mrs. Carter," he said quietly, "what I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about your daughter." He walked to a side door, knocked. "Are you ready?" he asked. A voice answered. A voice I knew better than my own heartbeat. The door opened, and my dead husband, Frank, stepped into the room, alive. They say grief makes your mind play tricks on you. But when I saw Frank step through that door, alive, breathing, standing upright in his favorite denim jacket, I knew this wasn't grief. This was betrayal twisting into something far darker. "Evelyn," he whispered, his voice cracking, "I'm sorry you had to mourn me, but faking my death was the only way to keep you alive." My knees nearly buckled. Mark pulled out a chair, but I couldn't sit. I just stared at my husband, my heart pounding like it wanted to escape my chest. "Frank, how?" It was the only word I managed. He came closer, slowly, like he was afraid he'd scare me. "I found something, Eve. Something about Naomi and Trent. And when I did, they tried to kill me." Mark opened a thick folder on the table. Inside were documents, photos, printouts, things I didn't understand yet, but felt in my bones were wrong. "8 months ago," Mark explained, "Frank came to me with concerns that your daughter and son-in-law were planning to take control of your entire estate. He'd noticed money missing, strange withdrawals, changes in your insurance files." Frank nodded. "And when I confronted Trent, he slipped digitalis into my evening tea." I covered my mouth. Digitalis, heart medication that can stop a heart cold. "It didn't kill me," Frank continued, "because I recognized the symptoms early and went straight to a doctor I trusted, a doctor willing to fake everything, records, death certificate, hospital report, so we could expose them before they finished their plan." I felt sick. Naomi, my only child, my baby girl who used to braid my hair on the porch, who used to beg me to make peach cobbler on Sunday nights. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would she do something like this?" Mark slid a sheet of paper toward me, a forged power of attorney with my name on it, my signature copied almost perfectly. "She and Trent plan to move you into a care facility," Mark said. "Then sell your home, cash out your retirement, close every account, and once the money was gone, well," Frank finished the sentence for him, "they didn't plan for you to live long after that." A deep cold settled in my bones. Not the cold of winter, the cold of betrayal. "They've been planting seeds for months," Mark added, "telling neighbors you're forgetful, calling your doctor behind your back, misplacing things in your house so it looks like cognitive decline." I covered my eyes as the truth hit me like a truck. The missing keys, the moved medications, the forgotten appointments I never forgot at all. It wasn't aging, it was manipulation. "They wanted your mind to be questioned," Frank said softly. "So when you disappeared, no one would suspect murder." My hand shook as I lowered it. Where are they now?" Mark checked his computer screen. "They're on their way here. I called them myself, told them you were confused about paperwork. I needed them to come sign some forms." I looked at my husband. "Why would you bring them here?" "So we can end this," he said, "legally, safely, with their confession on record." Before I could speak again, we heard the elevator ding in the hallway. Footsteps, 2 voices, arguing. Naomi's voice was sharp. "If she signs anything without us, it'll ruin everything." My stomach twisted. Mark stepped to the side door and whispered, "Evelyn, stay behind Frank. Let us handle this first." The office door swung open. Naomi rushed in with panic painted across her face. Trent right behind her, eyes wide and scanning the room. "Mom, what are you doing here?" she demanded. "We've been worried sick." Then she froze. Her eyes landed on Frank. Alive, standing, breathing. Her mouth fell open. The color drained from her face. And that's when I saw it. Not relief, not joy, not love. Fear. Pure, guilty fear. If you've ever seen someone's soul leave their body without them dying, that's what Naomi looked like when she saw her father standing there alive. She didn't gasp. She didn't scream. She just stared, frozen, like her mind was racing through every crime she thought was safely buried with him. "Dad?" she whispered, barely audible. No, you're dead." Trent took a step back like he'd seen a ghost. He grabbed the wall to steady himself, eyes darting to the exit. Frank didn't move toward them. He didn't yell. He didn't even blink. He just said, calm as a winter morning, "Sit down." Naomi sank into a chair automatically, like a child, obeying a parent out of old habit. Trent didn't. He stayed standing, jaw tight, eyes calculating every possible escape route. Mark clicked a small device on his desk. A red light began blinking. Everything was being recorded. "Naomi," Mark said evenly, "we're here to discuss your attempts to seize full legal and financial control over your mother." Her head snapped toward him. "That's ridiculous. She needs help. She's been forgetting things." "That's enough," Frank cut in. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos of Trent moving my pill bottles, video stills of Naomi taking my mail, bank statements showing withdrawals I didn't make, loan applications with forged signatures, their private internet searches, how to declare parent incompetent, digitalis overdose signs, is heart attack detectable after burial. Naomi's breath caught. Trent's face tightened. I felt like I was watching strangers, dangerous strangers, wearing my daughter's face. "I didn't do this," Naomi said, quickly, desperate and trembling. "Oh, don't you dare," Trent snapped. "You were the one who said your parents' house was worth $500,000, and all you needed was power of attorney to sell it." "That was your idea," Naomi shouted back. "You said she was too old to know what was happening." Their marriage cracked apart right in front of us, greed peeling back every layer until all that remained was hunger for money and fear of consequences. Frank stayed silent, letting them show who they really were. Then Naomi said something that chilled me to my core. "Dad wasn't supposed to wake up," she muttered. "It should have worked." Silence, the kind that presses on your chest, the kind that confirms the truth you prayed wasn't real. Frank leaned forward. "You poisoned me." Naomi flinched. "I didn't. Dad, listen, I didn't mean it." Trent cut her off, voice rising in panic. "He found the bottle. You said he'd never know." "Shut up, Trent," she shrieked. "You're ruining everything." Mark stepped back and pressed a second button under the desk. Security would be on their way. I finally found my voice. "Why?" I whispered. My own daughter wouldn't even look at me. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," Naomi said, her voice shaking. "We just needed the money. You and Dad weren't using it." Not using it. 46 years of our labor, our sacrifice, our home, our memories, reduced to a simple equation in their minds. We had it, they wanted it. "You were supposed to move into that facility," she continued. "We were trying to help you." "Help," I repeated. "By killing us?" Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth to speak, but that's when security burst through the door. 2 officers entered, hands on tasers. "Naomi Carter and Trent Lowe," one of them asked. "You're being detained for questioning regarding elder abuse, financial fraud, and attempted harm." Naomi collapsed in tears. Trent cursed under his breath. As they were handcuffed, Naomi looked at me with wild, furious eyes. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "You should have just let things happen." And then, they were taken away. I stood there trembling as Frank wrapped his arms around me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just whispered, "I don't know who she is anymore." If you've ever had your heart break twice for the same child, then you understand what I felt that afternoon. Losing Frank had nearly destroyed me, but realizing my own daughter tried to destroy us both, that was a different kind of death, a slow, quiet one that settles deep in the bones. After security escorted Naomi and Trent out, the room fell painfully silent. Mark turned off the recorder and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Frank guided me into a chair, his hands gentle but firm, the way he used to hold me during storms. I finally whispered the question that had been kicking around my ribs like a trapped animal. "Frank, how long have you known?" He glanced at Mark before answering. "Long enough to be terrified for you," he said softly. "About 8 months. 8 months. 8 months of secrets. 8 months of watching our only child sharpen betrayal into a weapon." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. My voice cracked, not from anger, but from a deeper hurt, a mother's hurt. Frank sat across from me, so close I could see how the last few months had aged him. "I wanted to," he said. "God knows I wanted to." But Naomi was already monitoring our phones. Trent was showing up at my office unannounced. They were watching us, waiting for a moment to finish what they started. Mark placed another folder on the desk. Not thick this time, thin, precise, deadly. "These are the guardianship papers they prepared," he said. "They were planning to take full legal control of your health care, your home, even your daily decisions. Once Frank was gone, they planned to move you immediately." My stomach twisted, because now the comments made sense. "Mom, that neighborhood isn't safe. Mom, you need supervision. Mom, you forgot again." Not concern, preparation, conditioning. Once they showed the judge evidence of your memory decline, they'd get guardianship instantly, Mark continued. "They had statements from neighbors saying you were confused. Trent spoke to your doctor's office claiming you were mixing medications." I pressed a hand to my forehead. My medications were always moved around. I thought I was just misplacing things. "You weren't," Frank said quietly. "They were rearranging them on purpose." I swallowed down a bitter taste. "What happens now?" I asked. "Will they be charged?" Mark nodded. "The officers who detained them today are gathering enough for formal arrest. The financial fraud alone is extensive. But the poisoning attempt..." He shook his head. "They won't walk away from that." I didn't know whether to feel relieved or devastated. Both emotions were pulling me apart like a wishbone. "We'll stay somewhere safe until everything is finalized," Frank said. "There's a cabin near Lake Livingston. A friend is letting us use it." Safe? The word sounded foreign. But when Frank reached for my hand, I held on to him like a lifeline. Because the truth was, for the first time in days, the terror eased just enough for me to breathe. Mark stood and opened the office door. "You two should go. The police will contact you soon." "And Mr. Carter?" Frank paused. "Yes?" "You saved her life," Mark said. "Both of yours." We left through a back exit to avoid reporters. The hallways were dim and quiet, but every sound still made me jump. Every elevator ding, every door creak, every passing footstep. When we finally stepped outside into the warm Houston air, I felt overwhelmed by the world. People walked by with coffee cups, cars honked, someone laughed across the street. Life kept going, while mine had been flipped upside down. Frank called a car and we rode in silence. My thoughts were tangled, messy, hurting. When we reached the little cabin by the lake, the sun was low and soft. Frank unlocked the door, set our bags down, and turned to me. "Evelyn," he said gently, "I know this is too much, but you're safe now. I'm right here." I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. My voice barely rose above a whisper. "She was my baby, Frank." He sat beside me, his hand warm against mine. "I know," he said, "and that's what makes this hurt so deeply. But evil isn't always outside the family. Sometimes it grows right inside the home." I leaned against him, exhausted, shattered. Because the truth was settling in, slow and painful. My daughter didn't just betray us, she'd almost killed us. There's a strange quiet that comes after a betrayal that deep. It isn't anger. It isn't grief. It's something heavier, like the air is too thick to breathe, and the world you trusted has slipped out from under you. We spent our first night in the cabin barely speaking. Frank made tea. I didn't drink it. Not because I didn't trust him, but because the idea of swallowing anything I didn't prepare myself sent a shiver through me. That's what betrayal does. It stains ordinary things with fear. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the cabin windows, bathing everything in gold. It was peaceful, but my chest felt tight. Frank sat across the room, reading through more documents Mark had given him. His face was set, determined, but there was pain there too. The pain of a father trying to understand how his own child became a stranger. "Evelyn," he said gently, "there's something else you need to see." I didn't want to see anything else. I didn't want more proof, but I nodded anyway. He handed me a printed email thread between Naomi and Trent. Just reading the subject line made my heart shrivel. Timeline for transition. Transition. Meaning our deaths. Inside the emails were cold, calculated statements. "Mom seems more confused lately. Good for our case. Once Dad is gone, guardianship will be easy. She can't live alone. We'll move fast after the funeral. Make sure the paperwork is ready. We need to sell ASA before she gets suspicious." Every sentence felt like a nail hammered into my chest. I set the papers down with shaking hands. "She wrote these?" Frank nodded sadly. And Trent replied to all of them. They weren't guessing. They weren't desperate. They planned everything. I pressed my hand to my mouth, fighting the urge to cry. But tears came anyway. Slow, hot, unstoppable. "I carried her," I whispered. "I held her when she had nightmares. I paid for her braces, her college, her wedding." I squeezed my eyes shut. I never imagined she'd turn into someone who saw us as disposable. Frank rose, crossed the room, and sat beside me. He wrapped an arm around my shoulders, and I let myself lean into him. For a moment, we weren't parents of a would-be killer, just two tired people trying to survive the shock of it all. "Eve," he murmured, "some children choose greed over blood. It doesn't mean you failed. It means they did." We stayed there a long time, just breathing, just trying to find the ground again. Around noon, Frank's phone beeped. A message from Mark. "The police are formally charging them today. You won't have to face them until court." Relief, fear, sadness. They tangled together like vines, squeezing my chest. Frank stepped outside to call Mark back, leaving me alone in the silent cabin. I walked to the window and looked out at the lake. The water was calm, barely moving, a mirror that reflected the sky without ripples. But inside me, everything was trembling. I thought about Naomi as a child, her tiny hands reaching for mine, her curls bouncing as she ran across the yard, her laughter high and sweet. Those memories used to warm me. Now they cut like glass. A knock on the cabin door startled me so hard I dropped my mug. It shattered on the floor. "Eve, it's okay," Frank called from outside. "It's just Sheriff Coleman. Mark sent him to check on us." I pressed a hand to my racing heart as Frank let the sheriff inside. He was tall, with kind eyes and a calm presence, the kind of man who'd seen enough darkness to know when someone needed gentleness. "Mrs. Carter," he said, tipping his hat, "I'm here to make sure you feel safe. We go through this kind of case more often than you'd think." I blinked. "More often than you'd think?" He nodded heavily. "Financial exploitation by adult children is the most common elder abuse we see in Texas. Folks trust their own blood, and that trust gets used against them." His words settled over me like a cold fog. "How do people survive something like this?" I asked quietly. He met my eyes. "By remembering the lesson that hurts the most," he said. "That DNA doesn't guarantee loyalty, and sometimes the people you raised grow up twisted by things you couldn't fix." I swallowed hard. "Will they try to contact us?" "Not unless they want new charges," he assured me. "For now, focus on healing. The justice system will handle the rest." When he left, Frank closed the door gently and looked at me for a long moment. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. We were safe, but we were also changed. Forever. There's a strange emptiness that settles in when the danger finally passes. Not peace, not relief, just a quiet you don't quite trust yet, like the calm in a house after a storm, when you're still listening for the next crash of thunder. For the next few days in the cabin, Frank and I lived slowly, carefully, like two people learning to breathe again after being underwater too long. He made breakfast every morning. I cooked dinner. We sat on the porch and watched the lake ripple under the wind. On the outside, it looked peaceful, but inside, I was haunted by two versions of Naomi, the little girl I raised and the woman who tried to erase us. Sometimes I'd pick up my phone, thinking to call her, then remember what she'd done and feel the ache settle right back into my chest. On the fourth day, Mark called again. His voice was steady, reassuring. Evelyn, the charges are official. Attempted murder, financial fraud, elder abuse, identity theft. The evidence is overwhelming. I closed my eyes and breathed out slowly. I wasn't happy. I wasn't relieved. It just felt final. When will the hearing be? Frank asked from beside me. Soon, Mark replied, but I need to prepare you both. Court won't be easy. They'll fight back. They may blame each other. They may even try to blame you. I thanked him and hung up. Frank squeezed my hand. You okay? I don't know, I admitted. How do you prepare to face your own child in court? He didn't answer. Some questions have no answer. That evening, we walked down to the shore. Frank skipped a rock across the lake, just like he used to do with Naomi when she was little. The rock skidded 3 times and sank. I keep thinking, I murmured, that maybe if I'd been a better mother. Frank turned sharply. Don't you dare blame yourself. You gave her everything. Love, security, kindness. Some people choose the dark path on their own. I nodded, but the guilt still tugged at me. Parenthood never stops feeling like responsibility, even when the child is grown, even when they hurt you in ways you never imagined possible. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived. A plain envelope, no return address, slid under the cabin door. My stomach twisted as Frank picked it up. Do you want me to open it? I hesitated, then nodded. Inside was a short, messy note, written in Naomi's handwriting. Mom, I know everything looks bad, but Dad lied. Trent lied. Mark lied. I never wanted to hurt you. Please don't testify. We can fix this if you stay quiet. Naomi. My knees went weak. It wasn't apology. It wasn't remorse. It was manipulation, the same kind she'd used for years. Frank shook his head slowly. She still thinks she can twist the truth, even after everything. I don't know this person, I whispered. I don't know who she became. Frank slipped the letter back into the envelope. We'll give this to the sheriff. It'll go on record. But I felt something inside me crack. The little hope I'd been holding, the tiny, flickering wish that maybe she'd feel regret, that hope died right there. Later that afternoon, the sheriff stopped by with an update. The prosecution says your testimonies will be key, he explained. They're asking you both to appear next week. Next week? It felt so soon. Too soon. Will she be there? I asked quietly. Yes, ma'am, he said gently. But she can't come near you. Court officers will be present. The idea of sitting 20 feet away from my daughter, my betrayer, it sent a chill through me. After he left, Frank held me close. We'll face it together, he whispered. You're not alone in this. But as night settled over the cabin, I knew the hardest part wasn't the testimony. It was accepting that the child I loved had chosen a path so dark that the light between us might never shine again. Courtrooms have a way of making even the strongest people feel small. When Frank and I walked into that Houston courthouse a week later, my hands trembled so badly I had to clutch the rail just to steady myself. not from fear of the law, but from fear of what I might see in my daughter's eyes. The room was quiet, almost too quiet, that kind of hush that sits heavy on your shoulders. Naomi and Trent were already seated at the defense table, separated. No wedding rings, no closeness. Two people who once shared a home, now glaring at each other like enemies. When Naomi saw us, her expression tightened. Not remorse, not sadness, just anger. Sharp, burning anger. As if we'd wronged her. As if we were the ones who deserved punishment. Frank squeezed my hand. "Remember," he whispered, "truth is on our side." The hearing began. The prosecutor laid out the charges: attempted murder, elder abuse, financial exploitation, identity theft, fraud. Each word felt like a hammer striking a bell inside my chest. Then the judge asked for witness testimony. Frank went first. He stood tall, voice steady as he explained everything: the poisoning, the forged documents, the disappearing medications, the staged funeral, the threats, the recordings. Naomi shifted in her seat, jaw clenched, but she never looked at him, not once. Then it was my turn. My legs shook as I walked to the stand. I placed my trembling hand over the Bible and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor was gentle. He asked about the gaslighting, the missing items, the pressure to move, the fear I'd been living in for months. My voice broke only once, when I said, "I didn't know my own daughter was preparing for my death." A murmur rippled through the courtroom, but Naomi just rolled her eyes at her own mother's pain. Then the defense attorney stood. Cold eyes, sharp tone. "Mrs. Carter, isn't it true you've experienced memory issues?" "No," I said firmly. "My memory was never the problem." "Isn't it true you were confused about your bank statements?" "I wasn't confused," I answered. "They were intercepted." "And isn't it true your daughter, my client, was simply trying to protect you?" I looked directly into Naomi's eyes, the eyes I'd once trusted more than anything. "No," I said softly. "She was trying to control me, to erase me, to profit from my death." Naomi's face hardened into pure resentment. Not one tear, not 1 ounce of guilt. As I stepped down from the stand, she leaned toward Trent and hissed something under her breath. He jerked away, disgusted. The cracks in their alliance were widening, fast. Then Trent took the stand. And the moment he opened his mouth, I knew he was about to save himself by burning Naomi to ashes. He confessed everything. The forged signatures, the bank withdrawals, the poisoning attempt, the fake memory decline, the plan to move me out of the house within 48 hours of Frank's staged funeral. He bawled like a child, blamed his gambling debt, blamed stress, blamed the pressure. But he didn't blame Naomi. He exposed her. Every detail, every conversation, every plan she started. Naomi slammed her hands on the table. "That's a lie! You agreed to everything!" The judge banged his gavel sharply. "One more outburst and you'll be removed from this courtroom." But Naomi wasn't done. She glared at Frank, then at me, her voice shaking with fury. "You should have just died like you were supposed to." Gasps erupted throughout the room. The prosecutor turned to the judge. "Your Honor, the state moves that the defendants be remanded immediately without bail. Their intentions are no longer hypothetical. They are openly expressed." The judge agreed without hesitation. As officers placed Naomi in handcuffs, she looked back at me. And for the first time, I realized the daughter I raised was gone, replaced by someone who saw her parents as stepping stones to wealth, someone who chose greed over blood, someone I could no longer recognize. Frank placed an arm around me, guiding me toward the exit. My legs felt weak, my heart heavier than it had ever been. But as we stepped out into the sunlight, I felt something unexpected blooming deep inside. Not joy, not victory, just the smallest whisper of freedom. When we stepped out of that courthouse, it wasn't triumph I felt. It was a quiet collapse inside my chest, like years of love, memories, and motherhood had been folded into one painful truth. Sometimes, the people you raise grow up to be the ones you must protect yourself from. Frank and I drove back to the cabin in near silence. He kept glancing at me, worried I might crumble. But there was no crumbling left in me, just a hollow ache where my daughter used to live. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, police updates, and late-night conversations. We learned things I wish I could unlearn. That Naomi had taken out loans in our names, that she'd tried to switch beneficiary forms, that she'd even Googled burial costs the day before Frank died. Frank would hold me at night while I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. Her first steps, her first heartbreak, her graduation day, moments I'd spent my whole life cherishing, now tainted by the woman she became. Eventually, the court handed down sentencing. Trent got 5 years. Naomi got 3 plus mandatory psychiatric evaluation. Not long enough for what they planned, but long enough for me to finally breathe. We didn't go back to our home in Houston. Too many shadows there. Too many places where betrayal had crawled between the walls. Instead, Frank found a small tan house in a quiet Louisiana town. The kind of place where porch swings creak at night and neighbors wave like they've known you forever. The first night we moved in, fireflies danced in the yard. The crickets hummed. Frank brewed coffee while I watched the sky turn orange. For the first time in months, I felt still. A few weeks later, a letter arrived at our new address. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Naomi. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a short message. Mom, I hope someday you'll understand. I did what I had to do. You and Dad were holding me back. I deserved more. When I get out, don't contact me. No apology, no regret, just blame, just entitlement, just confirmation that the woman who once called me mommy no longer existed. I folded the letter, walked outside, and set it on the grill. It curled, burned, and disappeared into ash. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just whispered, I release you. Because sometimes the only way to heal is to let go of someone who's already let go of you. Over the next months, Frank and I built a new life. Small routines, quiet mornings, walks by the bayou, dinner with neighbors who treated us kindly, not like a burden. We joined a support group for families betrayed by their own children. And hearing other stories of stolen homes, manipulated wills, fake dementia claims, gave us a strange kind of comfort. Not because their pain made ours smaller, but because it made us feel less alone. One evening, while watching the sun melt into the water, Frank asked, "Do you ever regret faking my funeral?" I smiled sadly. "No, it saved our lives." He nodded. And now we get to live the rest of them in peace. The truth is, he was right. The betrayal didn't destroy us. It freed us. Free from manipulation, free from fear, free from pretending things were normal when they weren't. I still think of Naomi sometimes. Not the woman she became, but the little girl with crooked pigtails who used to run toward me with open arms. That version of her lives only in memories now. And I've learned to love those memories without loving the person she grew into. If you're listening to my story right now, if something in your heart is stirring because you've seen hints of this kind of betrayal in your own family, please hear me. Love does not require you to be anyone's victim. Blood does not obligate you to walk into harm. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to walk away. Family isn't defined by DNA. Family is the people who guard your heart, not the ones who break it. And if my story helps even one person recognize the warning signs sooner, then this pain wasn't wasted. Thank you for listening to my journey. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of this story hit you the hardest? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Make sure you like this video, share it with someone who might need this warning, and subscribe to Mabel Stories for more real-life lessons wrapped in storytelling. Your support helps these stories reach the people who truly need them.